Beirut, 1985.
A car apparently packed with explosives blew up at the entrance to the embassy.
Terrorists are targeting Americans in a series of deadly attacks. Hundreds are dead, and now the CIA's top man in the Middle East has been taken hostage. William Casey, the head of the CIA, decides to throw out the rulebook and strike back.
He wanted to take revenge.
It was totally an off-the-books operation.
In a top-secret mission still denied by the American government, Casey allegedly sanctions the assassination of the man he believes is responsible for the attacks on Americans.
Bill Casey was convinced that Fadlallah was the force behind Hezbollah.
He determined this was a leading terrorist and they were going to get him.
And on March the 8th, 1985, the assassins strike.
It was a car bomb.
They took it into Fadlallah's neighborhood, hoping to kill him.
Based on briefings with the former head of the CIA, this is the top-secret story of the Beirut car bomb. (1983), Beirut, Lebanon. The capital of this tiny Middle Eastern country is being devastated by years of conflict. Now, American troops are arriving in the city. Their mission, not to invade, but to bring peace. Also in the city is a substantial CIA presence. Operating out of the US Embassy, the agents are there to counter a growing problem in Beirut: terrorism. A top-secret meeting has been called to discuss the threat. Chairing the meeting will be the CIA's top Middle East analyst, Robert Ames.
He is a man who was considered to be the key analyst of terrorist organizations and Middle East politics.
Bob Ames was probably the most knowledgeable person in the Middle East.
Ames had previously infiltrated the PLO and has been brought into Beirut secretly to advise on the terrorist threat. Also in the building that day is aid worker Ann Damerel.
When you work in an embassy, everyone knows that CIA agents are there. What you may not know is who they are.
Casey directs every CIA resource available to hunt down those responsible for the attack on the US Embassy.
Under CIA Director Casey, the CIA is probably more sophisticated than it ever had been in its history.
Analysts are charged with reviewing thousands of intercepts. Agents are ordered to go to their informants, and dozens of emergency meetings are called for senior CIA officials. But before Casey can get the enemy in his sights, they strike again. Their target? Over 1,800 American Marines stationed in Lebanon as peacekeepers.
The United States had made a decision to put its troops in Lebanon to help stabilize that country.
We were there acting as a liaison between the Lebanese government and the warring militias until the Lebanese government could get on their feet.
They weren't sent there to fight a war. They were to keep the peace. It was a peacekeeping mission.
The majority of the forces are based in barracks situated next to Beirut Airport.
From the rooftop of the building, we could see the main terminal and the mountains and the Mediterranean Sea to the right.
Their position is also dangerously close to an area of Beirut controlled by Muslim militias.
Where it was located was not a choice position for its security.
In the early hours, a truck heads out of Muslim-controlled Beirut on the airport road towards the barracks. At the same time, Marine Lance Corporal Kevin Jiggets is signing off from guard duty.
I went down to my room in the building, and I remember just taking off my boots and laying down.
As Jiggets lies down to sleep, the van approaches the perimeter of the barracks.
This truck came down Airport Road. He turned into the parking lot of the main terminal, and he crashed through a barbed wire barrier.
As a peacekeeping force, the Marines' weapons are not loaded. The face of the driver is visible to the guards as he aims the truck at the barracks. He is smiling.
It drove into this big building that was a barracks.
The initial contact with the truck and the guard shack is what woke me up.
The truck rams into the base of the barracks and is primed to explode.
And I reached for my weapon when I said, "It's showtime, ladies." And that's the last thing I remember.
It is the largest non-nuclear explosion since the Second World War.
Upon detonation, the building was lifted from its foundation and kind of pancaked down floor after floor.
The entire building is leveled.
We had never seen anything like this. It was an iconic bombing.
The truck was laden with approximately 12,000 pounds of explosives.
It was a pretty simple thing, a very large vehicle packed with explosives, got up to the front of the barracks and was exploded. It wasn't very complicated.
It was a beautifully done operation.
The next thing I remember was 2 white Marines were removing rubble from me. I didn't feel any pain until they picked me up.
Both of Jiggets' legs are broken, and he suffers burns and cuts over his entire body. All that remains of the 9-story building is rubble.
Prior to 9/11, it was the largest terrorist attack against U.S. personnel in the history of the United States.
241 American soldiers were killed, 240 of them were Marines.
It is the biggest single loss of American servicemen's life since Iwo Jima.
I know there are no words that can express our sorrow and grief over the loss of those splendid young men. Likewise, there are no words to properly express our outrage, and I think the outrage of all Americans, at the despicable act.
In Washington, William Casey and the CIA are now under real pressure to find the terrorists. The problem is that no one has yet claimed responsibility. But within hours of the attack, a statement is released to a French news agency by a group calling themselves Islamic Jihad, Arabic for Holy War. The group say they are responsible for both the attack on the Marines and for another simultaneous attack in the city, which has claimed the lives of 58 French soldiers. But no one in Washington has ever heard of Islamic Jihad.
When the Islamic Jihad claimed the bombing, we knew absolutely nothing about it. It was not an organization that we even knew existed.
The CIA was caught completely off guard. We did not have the structure internally to handle that kind of threat.
We didn't know where it was, what it was. We didn't know who was behind it.
William Casey is determined that the CIA will find out and bring the perpetrators of this terrible crime to justice. And according to some, he will go beyond the law to do so. The man Casey selects to uncover those responsible is seasoned Middle East agent Robert Bayer. Anxious not to lose more operatives, Bayer's brief is simple.
When I left Washington, the orders were stay alive. Whatever you do, stay alive. We don't care if you ever send a report in. We don't care what you do, just don't get killed or kidnapped. It was very simple orders.
Bayer sets off and finds Beirut a city in turmoil.
There was no other way in except a Black Hawk helicopter. We came in over the sea about 10 feet. The helicopter drops down, so there's spray going everywhere. And you're coming in about 200 miles an hour. There's shelling, parts of Beirut are burning. It was the ninth circle of hell.
Beyer and the other agents immediately begin to set up a low-profile operation.
This was Lebanon, you know, it was a civil war. You just absolutely wanted to be the least important person on the street. We didn't wear suits, always Levi's, scuff shoes. You never carried a radio in the open. You never carried a gun in the open. You looked like you were a bum that just sort of wandered off from wherever. We drove beat-up old cars with bullet holes in them, with bald tires. You know, if you change your car every day, that was the best way to do it. At one point, I actually drove a taxi there. It was an old Mercedes, was been painted a bunch of time, all dinged up, and it looked like what's called a service. There were just no limits, no laws. It was amazing. We had all the money we wanted. We would, at the drop of a hat, buy an apartment. I had probably 12 apartments and houses and moved between them night after night. So you were never in the same place.
As a fluent Arabic speaker, Beyer is assigned the role of gathering intelligence on the streets.
It was mainly picking up sources in cars, and we would put surveillance on places, watch people coming and going.
Gradually, Beyer's intelligence work starts to pay off. He begins to gather information on Islamic Jihad. And that intelligence leads him to the religious leaders of one of Lebanon's main Islamic sects, the Shias.
We knew that there was a grouping of Shia clerics that had started in 1982, and we watched this formation occur. You know, people would join and leave. Names we didn't know much about, but basically the religious establishment was coming to join in this Islamic resistance movement.
The Shia sect are in the minority in the Muslim world, but in Lebanon, they make up around half the Muslim population. And critically, they are the same branch of Islam as America's key enemy in the Middle East, Iran. Despite limitless CIA resources, Beyer's efforts to penetrate Islamic Jihad now hit a brick wall.
These people were very, very good. They never showed themselves. They worked out of tenements in Beirut. They didn't have a name, they didn't have an office, they didn't keep phone numbers.
What we began to find out was that they were very sophisticated in the structure of their organization, and in my opinion, they were almost as good as we are.
They were strictly family-based, impossible to penetrate.
So William Casey decides to turn to America's only friend in the region, Israel.
Israel is a very, very close ally, both politically and in intelligence areas, and so we work with them really as our intelligence and political brothers and sisters, really.
The Israeli intelligence service, Mossad, is conducting its own operations in Lebanon. Mossad pass on to Casey what they know. The Israeli report says that an organization inside Lebanon is involved. The Israelis identify a house in Damascus, the capital of neighboring Syria, where they say a Syrian intelligence officer discussed the attacks on the Marines 3 days before the bombing. Present at the meeting was a grandfatherly man with a black turban and brown robes. The Israelis say he is the key figure in the militant Shiite movement in Lebanon, Sheikh Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah.
The intelligence the CIA and the Israelis developed showed that Sheikh Fadlallah, a Shiite militant, was at the center and involved, allegedly, in at least the main bombings in Beirut, including the attack on the Marine barracks.
Fadlallah was born and raised in Iraq, but has spent his adult life in Lebanon. He is an open critic of America's presence in the region.
Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah naturally became a part of the anti-Western coalition, if you like. You know, he's an Ayatollah. He would give blanket fatwas saying, yeah, it's fine to use force to drive out an occupying power.
Casey becomes convinced that Fadlallah has to be connected to the bombings and is a leading figure in Islamic Jihad. At last, Casey has a target. According to some, Casey now sets in motion an operation to assassinate the man who he believes ordered the slaughter of hundreds of Americans. In the months after the barracks bombing, President Reagan reassures the world that America will stay the course.
The people of Lebanon must be given the chance to resume their efforts to lead a normal life, free from violence, without the presence of unauthorized foreign forces on their soil. And to this noble end, I rededicate the efforts of the United States.
But the truth is that neither the American military or the American people have any desire to be embroiled in another Vietnam.
The military decided that no longer were they going to let the politicians dribble them into a war, and a war that the public doesn't support.
I think the American public were sick of the killings.
But CIA Director William Casey is considering an operation against the Lebanese cleric Sheikh Mohammed Fadlallah, who he suspects is the leader of the terrorist organization behind the attacks on Americans. But before he can strike back, there is a further humiliation for America. Just 4 months after the bombing of the US Marines, America begins a full withdrawal of its forces from Lebanon. Many in the CIA believe it is sending the wrong message to the terrorists.
Pulling Marines out of Beirut was viewed as a victory by the bad guys, writ large.
It was sending a signal to terrorists in the region that the Reagan administration was a paper tiger.
Casey decides that it is up to the CIA to exact revenge for this loss of face.
Casey felt defeated because he was part of the administration that convinced Reagan to go in, to send the Marines in.
But to strike back, he must first rebuild the agency's damaged capabilities in Lebanon. Casey's first action is to send in a new station chief, William Buckley.
Buckley was a great man, a very solid fella. His expertise was in paramilitary operations.
Buckley, a former commander who had fought in Vietnam, will be the CIA's most important man on the ground in Beirut. Casey promises to provide Buckley with everything he needs to combat the terrorist threat posed by Islamic Jihad. Buckley steps up CIA paramilitary training, hostage rescue, and VIP protection. He trains Lebanese intelligence agents to work alongside his teams. Back at CIA headquarters in Langley, Casey has 50 highly trained analysts working exclusively on Islamic terrorism in the Middle East. Out of this massively expanded operation, Buckley and Casey learn a vital piece of intelligence.
It takes a lot of time to figure out what's going on. We figured that the Islamic Jihad was an organization that they just borrowed a name.
It emerges that Islamic Jihad is not a single body, It is the name for a loose network of Shiite militant groups. The CIA learns that just one of these groups is responsible for the attacks on American targets. That group will become one of the most dangerous and radical organizations to ever emerge from the Middle East. But in 1984, they are only just starting to refer to themselves by name. They call themselves the Party of God. In Arabic, Hezbollah.
Everybody talks about Hezbollah today. At the time, I never heard of Hezbollah.
In April 1983, we had no idea that there would be a Hezbollah. In fact, there was no name for it.
It is only now, after the bombings, that the group starts to use their notorious name. Hezbollah has been created by America's greatest enemy in the region, Iran. In 1982, its spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, had sent 1,000 Iranian Revolutionary Guards to train Shiite fighters in Lebanon.
Hezbollah was created by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. There's just no doubt about this. They funded it, they organized it.
And now Hezbollah is fighting Iran's war in Lebanon.
It was an extension of the Iranian Revolution, if you like. It was Iran's effort to open out the revolution to the Arab world. And they did it very successfully. And Lebanon was the first place.
The CIA discovers that Iran is training Hezbollah fighters on the Lebanese-Syrian border. Soon, they receive other vital intelligence. Both the Lebanese security forces and Israel's Mossad inform the CIA that a senior figure in the Hezbollah power structure is none other than Sheikh Mohammed Fadlallah. The same man who Casey believes is behind the attacks on the US Embassy and Marine barracks. Casey becomes convinced that the best way to strike at Hezbollah and send a clear signal to America's enemies is to kill Fadlallah. But Casey faces a complication. Targeted assassinations are against the law.
During Watergate, Gerald Ford, the president, issued an executive order banning assassinations by any agency, including the CIA. So in the 80s, Casey's hands were tied, and so he stretched the law.
In Washington, Casey turns to the CIA's formidable legal team to try to convince President Reagan to change the law. His argument is that a preemptive strike against Fadlallah should be seen as an act of self-defense.
In other words, if you'd gotten rid of Hitler in the 30s, maybe 20 million people wouldn't have died in World War II. And that's a pretty good argument.
Back in Beirut, William Buckley has a much more immediate problem to deal with. The terrorists have started taking hostages.
Hezbollah had started kidnapping individual Americans with a view to getting the United States out of the Middle East.
Groups of armed men are seizing Westerners, especially Americans, from the streets of Beirut. Casey realizes that the CIA needs to act. So Buckley starts formulating a daring rescue plan.
He wanted to set up paramilitary operations. He said, let's get people on the ground, let's get Delta Force there, we're going to rescue these people.
Buckley's plan is that the Green Berets and Israeli Special Forces will enter the city by boat under the cover of darkness. Simultaneously, in the city, Mossad agents will cause a diversion by placing bombs outside the homes of suspected Islamic terrorists. Then the Green Berets will make their way to a series of suspected locations and conduct stealth raids to rescue the hostages and take out the terrorists. Dangerous and daring though the plan is, Buckley believes that the very nature of such a surprise assault will be what ensures its success. On March the 15th, 1984, Casey gives Buckley the green light. But before he can put his plan into action, Hezbollah will strike again. And this time, the terrorists are coming after the CIA themselves. Since arriving in Beirut, Buckley has been having an affair with a beautiful young Lebanese woman called Zenoub. Unbeknown to Buckley, Zenoub works for Hezbollah. Monitoring every detail of Buckley's personal routine, she passes on the intelligence to the Hezbollah leadership.
Buckley was very predictable in his routine going to and from the embassy, and he was warned by a ranking military official to, look, stop doing that because you're putting yourself at risk.
Buckley ignores the warning, believing he is safe from attack and oblivious to Zenoub's true identity. On a Friday morning, William Buckley leaves his Beirut apartment carrying top-secret documents. Taking the elevator to the basement garage, he is joined by a well-dressed man. In the basement, the man suddenly strikes.
They hit him over the head with a briefcase with something hard in it. They grabbed him, threw him in the back of a trunk of a car, and drove off into the southern suburbs.
For Casey, the kidnapping of the Beirut station chief is an unprecedented disaster.
This was a real earthquake for Casey and the CIA.
William Buckley was a chief of station and had volumes of CIA information in his head, in his memory. And the accounts were that Hezbollah was torturing Buckley daily.
In September, proof that Buckley is still alive is released to the CIA by his kidnappers.
There appeared eventually a video that Casey saw of Buckley being tortured.
He was almost dead. He was slobbering. You could barely understand what he was saying. The concern was the amount of classified information that was being tortured out of Station Chief Buckley. It was causing serious damage to national security.
Buckley's Lebanese agents began to vanish or turn up dead. With the loss of their station chief and their intelligence network in Lebanon clearly compromised, Casey fears the agency's entire operation in the Middle East is in ruins.
It showed the limits of American power. The United States was not able to protect its intelligence representatives abroad. And Hezbollah was able to hold this man, and the United States apparently couldn't do anything about it.
For one of their own to be tortured and killed that way, and then for the video to get to Casey and the CIA, it galvanized this idea of we have to fight back, and if our hands are going to be tied, if there are rules, if there are laws, if there are executive orders, to hell with them, we're going to get the job done.
And any doubt that Casey may have about hitting back at the terrorists is removed when they strike yet again. A Hezbollah car bomb targets the US Embassy Annex building. 24 are killed and 90 are wounded. But this time, the CIA link the attack to Hezbollah. Casey turns to remarkable top-secret CIA aerial photographs, which show a van identical to the one used in the attack at a Hezbollah training camp in the Lebanese desert. The photographs reveal an exact mock-up of the protective concrete barriers at the embassy annex. and between the obstacles, tire tracks.
If they looked carefully enough, the outline of the drive that had to be made was exactly what you saw right in front of the United States Embassy Annex in Beirut.
It is beyond doubt. The Iranians are running a car bomb school for Hezbollah terrorists. In Washington, Casey makes his position clear. They must cut off the head of the Hezbollah snake and kill the man they believe to be its leader, Sheikh Fadlallah.
In November of 1984, President Reagan signed something called a finding. A finding is a document that means the president has found that a certain top secret activity is in the interests of national security.
The finding does not mean that the CIA can carry out assassinations, but it does mean that they can train local units who potentially can. This gives Casey some room for maneuver. Casey can now sanction the killing, but the CIA must still not be directly involved. Veteran journalist Bob Woodward claims that this is precisely what Casey does next.
It was totally an off-the-books operation. The CIA was not directly involved, though Casey himself personally was.
Covert action has always been available to presidents when they do not wish to use the United States military.
According to Woodward, Casey hunts for a third party to execute the assassination.
William Casey looked elsewhere to find a partner to launch a strike against the leadership of Hezbollah in Lebanon. And that partner was Saudi Arabia.
Although denied by Saudi Arabia and the American government, according to Woodward, in early 1985, the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the US, Prince Bandar, is ordered by his king to cooperate with Casey in every respect.
Casey and Bandar met in one of these classic CIA secret meetings at Bandar's house and walked out into the garden.
According to Woodward, the Saudis, like Casey, believe that Sheikh Fadlallah is the leader of Hezbollah, and so agree to fund the operation.
Casey gave Bandar a card with the bank account number and said, transfer the $3 million for this operation into this account.
Casey agrees to the Saudis taking operational control, and they agree to using a former British SAS officer to head the mission.
It was Saudi intelligence, a former SAS officer, and Casey, and they planned this operation.
The SAS officer arrives in Beirut. To keep the CIA out of the picture, he recruits Lebanese agents to carry out the mission.
The goal here was to get the Lebanese to do the work, your boots on the ground, if you will, to try to find Hezbollah's leaders and deal with them.
The plan is simple: to strike at Fadlallah using the weapon of the terrorists.
You know, irony of ironies, made a car bomb.
One agent is ordered to procure a large quantity of explosives. Another is to choose the vehicle. Money is paid to informants to make sure that they know where Fadlallah will be at a certain time. The man chosen to drive the vehicle is Eli Habika, the leader of a Christian militia group. The bomb will be set off by a timed remote, which Habika will activate before leaving the scene. Everything is set. The team is given the green light, and the operation to kill Fadlallah is set in motion. A pickup truck is driven into the crowded Bir al-Abed neighborhood in South Beirut. Concealed beneath crates of vegetables, 750 pounds of explosives. The truck is parked across the road from Sheikh Fadlallah's house. Intelligence says that Fadlallah will soon be returning there from the mosque. lookouts are positioned to alert the driver of the truck, Eli Habika, of Fadlallah's departure. At approximately 2 p.m., Fadlallah leaves the mosque after Friday prayers. One of the lookouts identifies Fadlallah, and the signal is relayed to Habika to prepare the bomb for detonation. But then a woman stops Fadlallah. She asks a religious question. They need to delay the detonation. Fadlallah is too far from the bomb. But it's too late. The blast kills 83 people. 283 lie wounded. The victims are mainly schoolgirls, women, and children. Buildings up to 600 feet away are destroyed. Despite the size of the explosion, the bombers have missed their target. Fadlallah is just outside the blast radius. Surrounded by his supporters, the cleric simply walks away.
They did not kill him. They killed 80 innocent people, and Fadlallah escaped.
Those at the scene are under no illusion as to who is behind the attack. At CIA headquarters, Casey receives word that the operation has gone horrifically wrong.
This bombing of Fadlallah was a turning point. I mean, anybody had any doubts about the West were immediately convinced that these guys are crazy. They're going to slaughter us and kill us all for no purpose at all.
And worse is to come. It later transpires that the CIA's intelligence on Fadlallah from Israeli and Lebanese sources is deeply flawed. The man the CIA had targeted for death is not the head of Hezbollah. Over the next few years, the agency learns that Fadlallah has never been involved in any terrorist attacks against America.
There was no evidence, none, zero at all, that he was directly involved in attacks on the West or Israel. He was not an active operational member of Hezbollah, never at any time.
To this day, Prince Bandar and both the Saudi Arabian and American governments deny any involvement in the attempt on Fadlallah's life. They say that rogue Lebanese militias undertook the operation alone. And those who worked alongside Casey at the highest levels of the CIA also claim he was not involved.
I think a lot of people have ascribed it to something that Casey put together with whatever, and that's not true. Casey had nothing to do with it.
Despite these public denials, it appears that William Casey himself is prepared for the story of his personal involvement to go public. In the years before his death in 1987, Casey agrees to a series of interviews with award-winning reporter Bob Woodward.
I met with Casey and talked to him 48 times. I talked to him on the phone, traveled with him on his CIA plane when I was the only one with him, had dinner with him in his house, had breakfast with him in his house.
Woodward eventually reveals Casey's involvement in the botched assassination attempt in his book, Veil, The Secret Wars of the CIA.
Now, why Casey would tell Bob Woodward this story, I don't know.
I think Casey talked to Woodward quite openly to leave a legacy behind and let people know what he wanted them to know.
Over the years, there has been speculation as to why Casey would talk to Woodward. Many people believe it was because Casey wanted to ensure that the CIA would learn from its mistakes in Beirut.
We underestimated our enemy in that case, and it came back to bite us.
Prior to 9/11, the terrorist attack on the Marine compound in 1983 was the largest terrorist attack against Americans in the history of the United States.
Because of intelligence failures in 1983, hundreds of Americans, including 241 Marines, lost their lives. It is a loss that many refuse to forget.
Beirut lives in the hearts of Beirut veterans because there's not been a day that's gone by that I don't think about it and I don't remember it.
Casey, too, was adamant that the deaths of the Marines, the CIA agents, and embassy staff who died in the previous bombing would not be in vain. The CIA desperately needed to employ more effective tactics against the extremists.
Casey figured out that we had to do something better about combating terrorism.
The critical lesson that Casey learned was that the CIA needed to find ways of getting better intelligence on its enemies and finding more accurate ways of killing them. So a year after the Fadlallah attack, Casey sets up a new CIA department, the Counterterrorism Center.
It brought together the espionage people and the people from the Directorate of Intelligence to work together for virtually the first time in history. And this was a revolution.
This revolution at the agency ensures that, unlike in Beirut, the CIA will now always try to have its own agents on the ground, providing highly accurate intelligence direct to the CIA's best analysts. They will no longer need to repeat the mistakes of Beirut, where they were forced to rely on foreign intelligence and local Lebanese to carry out their missions. In 1986, the Counterterrorism Center starts developing a new way to accurately target its enemies: an unmanned aerial vehicle.
That was the beginning of where we are today with the lethal drones. That was the genesis right there.
This idea, born out of a failure of such tactics as the car bomb, would result in the development of highly sophisticated, lethal drones. It would take a generation to be perfected, but drones are now an integral and highly effective weapon in the CIA's campaign against terrorism.
It is a new era, and if you think about what Casey was dabbling in with Sheikh Fadlallah, it's small change compared to what goes on now.
The CIA continues to evolve in the face of new terrorist threats and has achieved some startling successes. In many cases, the extent of those successes are only now becoming declassified.